He was just standing there. Yes, right where you stand, boy, and pierced me with his eyes, right in the middle of the day.
Всем привет, с вами Аленка. Сегодня я продолжаю тренировать чтение вслух на английском в игре «Зайчик». Tiny bunny, то бишь. Who could be visiting us here in the middle of nowhere? We don't know anyone around here. So persistent. I felt extremely unsettled just from a silly thought that our morning guests could have come from the woods. I could barely hear voices coming from the front door. My mind was urging me to hide. In the closet, under the table, behind the curtains where Ola always hides. Tosha, come here! I felt like kettlebells were tied to my feet, but still dragged them towards the hallway. A couple of policemen towered over me in a doorway. They smelled like frost and worry. My mom always winced and grumbled the moment she saw patrol cars, worse than bandits. At the moment though, she looked somewhat confused. Hello! A senior officer who wore a grim expression nodded. A boy had gone missing yesterday. His name is Vova. Look at this, please. Have you seen him? The policeman held out a photograph to me. There was a ginger boy around the age of elementary school, pictured with a wall carpet as the backdrop. He had a striped cat in his hands and wore a wide smile. No, I haven't. Are you sure? Look closely. Where would I see him? I don't know anyone around here. I barely leave this house. Well, maybe you've seen him from the window? That's right, your window looks straight at the forest, don't they? The window... Right. No, I haven't seen anything. I see. He sounded tired, but his stare, long and heavy. His stare, long and heavy, was full of suspicion. I squirmed unwittingly under the weight of guilt which his giant shadow cast over me. The policeman finally tore his eyes from me and glanced over the hallway, the stairway, and the cracks in the ceiling, which I haven't noticed before for some reason. How do you like your new place, by the way? Getting used to it? Bit by bit. It's just our little daughter misses the city a lot. Misses the city, huh? Have the locals been treating you well? Yes, everything all right, thank you. The policeman pierced through me one more time with his brown eyes. My head started spinning. Can I help you somehow? I asked that in shaky voice to look like a polite boy and to end this unpleasant conversation sooner. Now that I think about it, you look just like one of my nephews, little fella. He's a witty boy around your age, wears the same type of goggles, always engrosses in reading those mystery novels. Told me he wants to enroll in police school when his family visited this summer. Wanted to help other people, just like me. See? I felt uncomfortable, as if a distant relative and not police officer stood before me. You know what? Little boys like you should stay at home, stay away from trouble. The times have changed so much. Mum interjected in a cold voice. You don't say. Well then, what grade are you, Anton? 6. Have you made any friends here so far? Not yet. I'll be going to school for the first time after the break. Then, I'll leave you my number just in case. Call me if you have any new info. Bye-bye! Policemen were gone along with their shadows, and the smell of cheap cologne and the photo of a smiling boy. His face still stood before my eyes. I wondered what it was like for him being alone there. For some reason I thought of the forest swaying in the wind. What did his poor parents feel? And what would my parents do if I'd gone missing? Would they cry and thrash around hysterically, or would they accuse each other like they always do and forget about me eventually? Mom, this Vova, did he go missing in our forest? Seems like it, poor child. I looked on the window, at the road. The police УАЗик... Как это по-русски? Как сказать по-английски УАЗ? Drove off toward the village. Officer's nephew came to mind when I was splitting off old paints from the windowsill. I remembered all the teenage mystery novels from the Black Kitty series I read this summer. Your average boys and girls investigated all sorts of mysteries there. They looked for clues, spied on suspicious people, and after a set of amazing adventures, bam, solved any complicated case. They became local celebrities and must have made their parents very proud. I noticed a trail of policemen's footprints that led to the forest, and then it clicked in my head. Why don't I start an investigation of my own? Maybe I'll find that lost boy, and I'll get the reward. Oля will be so happy. And not only Oля, Mom and Dad too. Maybe they'll even forget about their quarrels for a while. Maybe I'll even save us from the D word. I fantasized about buying Ola Tamagotchi and getting cassette player and bunch of tapes for myself and a whole box of Kinder Surprise. When was the last time our parents bought us any toys? Last autumn, I think. My dad had lost his job at the time. There's that annoying song about it. I had little to no idea what was an accountant. What was the accountant's job like? They count money, I think. Neighbors used to envy us. But nowadays, Mom and Dad barely had money to afford sweets, and Dad would always divide a single chocolate bar between me and Ola. Sometimes I gave her my share too. No matter how much I wanted to eat sweets, she was still just a pipsqueak. I couldn't wait to go out looking for clues. I'm going outside! Yeah, right. You want the police to go around with your photograph next? The forest is so thick. What if the boy got snatched up by wild animals? Or something even worse? Even worse, I heard through the hallway. I won't go far. I stay away from the forest. Did you hear what I said? Or should I repeat myself? Better go pack your school bag or play with Ola. Yes, Mom, of course. The sound of splashing water came from the kitchen. It meant that argument was over and Mom had the last word. Of course. Open the dark, stuffy closet. Mom says it smells like mice, but how would she know their smell? She hates when I stick my nose in there. She is afraid I'll cut myself on a freshly sharpened axe. And Ola can't even be lured close to it. She thinks Baba is living there. I tried to help her fight her fears once. I opened the door and turned on a dim lamp so she could see there was nothing but cobwebs, dad's tools, and scratched walls. She still didn't believe me. And I like to hide in the closet and listen to Ola count outside. 1, 2, 3, better hide from me. And then drag her feet on creaking floorboards, hoping that she won't need to look for me in the cramped monster's den. Так, пошли на кухню. Так, подожди. О, да, тут эти надписи изменены на английский. Прикольно. On the side of old ocean freezer was checkered with my childish drawings, Mom recipes, and all kinds of stickers from bubblegum with dinosaurs that Ola likes so much. Dinosaurs, так ведь ударение. Among that still life picture hung a piece of rolled paper with the phone number of the police officer who visited us. First Lieutenant Тихонов. Я почти не смогла прочитать. Я такая, что это за фамилия, что это за слово? I read inside my mind, looking at the officer's sprawling handwriting. A scrap of paper was held by 2 pieces of broken magnet from some old Soviet toy, and those pieces was just barely covered up the numbers, as if to taunt me. I leaned I leaned toward to unveil the mystery and take the piece to a safer place where it would wait for its time, when I would finally find Vova and be the first to call the police with the happy news. Anton! Mom's reproachful eyes stared at me. What do you need it for? Hang off, you'll lose it. You'll lose it. Angering my mom was the last thing I wanted, so I lowered my hand. I took a peek at Mom's crossword. She would get very angry when someone gave her advice, so me and Dad faked knowing the answer and being about to reveal it all the time. I smiled at the fleeting thought. Vertical, 9 letters. Name of Philistine? Блин, я забыла, как это правильно. Сейчас. Deity. Вот это. Deity that protected them from viper bites and had nickname Lord of Flies. Second letter is E. Decrepit and stain-covered calendar was once my favorite form of entertainment in Grandma's house. I remember waking up and running to the kitchen so I could tear off yesterday's leaf first thing in the morning, as if the coming day would get lost in the taiga forest without my help. One day closer to New Year's, one day closer to my grandma's funeral. I haven't touched this calendar for years now, since the time they started writing dark and spooky death chants that only made me gloomy instead of funny. Proverbs and superstitions, to be exact. I grabbed the dusty calendar leaf with caution, and it tore off effortlessly. Sadly, the spooky descriptions from my childhood were still there. 7 horses carry the log. If 7 can carry, bring the 8th from a fairy. Fairy? They will take it away and never come back. This is the fate the log cannot escape. I crumped the grey leaf and threw it into the waste bin, hoping to get rid of the anxiousness that washed over me. It was spreading inside me like ink stain on blotting paper. It was difficult to lie to Mom, but there was no other way for me to run away from home, and it is very important, you know. Mom, the biggest problem is TV. The picture is dim and there are stripes all over the screen. Mom's face became visibly distorted. Are you killing me there? So, have you had enough of shooting those stupid ducks now? Told you the night score will go dim because of your console. Where will we find a TV technician in this hole, huh? Maybe just the settings. Please go see for yourself. Strange, it worked fine in the morning. Maybe a snowfall caused it. Mom rubbed her hands clean on her apron and went to Ola's room. I opened the front gate and went into the field, carefully so Mom wouldn't see me from the window. When I crossed half of the distance toward the forest, the snow piles became as high as my knees. I remembered my nightly fears. I saw the silhouettes around here. They were jumping around, holding hands. That hypnotizing music started playing in my head all on its own. In the light of day, those distant figures felt like a simple dream. The sound turned my nightmares to ash, but the aftertaste was still there. Distant ringing in my ears, distorted shadows crawling on the snow alongside me, and barely audible whisper in my head, blurry and almost kind. Everything was silent, so silent I felt like the world was totally empty. No ground, no sky, no parents, no Oля. The time reached its limit, a one-way trip that ended at the forest's piney stockade. Sometimes silence was much scarier than any scream. Our parents would scream at each other while arguing, and both me and Ola turned to stone, listening to them. But then always came the ringing silence. Our apartment became numb a couple of days before we departed. It was hard to remember the last time Mom and Dad joked around, laughing, or spent time together, almost like all of it was in a previous life. When they kissed with Olia present, she always frowned and snorted in a funny way. But one day it all changed. Something important had left our home, and something scary filled the remaining void. It was as if the fire broke out and our parents were hurriedly packing our belongings, trying to save themselves and us. From who, though? From the people with dead cold eyes, who sometimes visited us in our previous home. The eyes that only saw balls of worms on the black ground in everything. And somewhere far away, a siren was going off, trying to warn us of the coming menace? Menace, угроза, так и есть. I shuddered, chasing away my delusions, and looked around. There were only me, this wide field, and the wind that was wiping up icy dust and belts of powdered snow. I squinted from the sun and turned my eyes to the sunless forest. It looked especially dark in contrast with blinding whiteness. Knobby tree roots slithered under the snow like fat snakes. Rotten leaves and coniferous needles. Coniferous, нет, все правильно, хвойные иглы застыли во льду. Зачем я перевожу, мы в курсе. Ладно, все. Dry, prickly branches intertwined, bringing up uncomfortable thoughts about fences. Were they protecting the forest, or were they keeping something from breakout? Some objects were hanging from one of the pointy branches. I tried to get closer, drowning in snow, and when I almost got to the edge of the forest, I saw a knitted mitten. It looked like a wounded bird among the hungering semi-dark. Would I take it to the police? The senior officer looked gloomy, but he still reminded me of Captain Casanova from my favorite TV show called The Streets of Broken Lights. He was also always anxious and with a tired look in his eyes, but still brave and strong. Will this mitten help them find the lost boy? I heard a distant shout. Looked like it came from the river. As if the trees were calling out to someone. But it sounded closer to me. Someone was standing there, behind the trees, hiding. I knew someone was looking for the lost boy, but still, something was unsettling about that figure. Its stillness, how it was bent unnaturally toward the ground. Its blackness. There's no one there, just branches and roots. It's all just my imagination. Near the bird flapped its wings loudly. A shadow split from the tree and disappeared from my sight. I looked away for just a moment, but then I turned my gaze back to the same place. It was gone. But when I turned my gaze back to the same place, so it was my imagination, after all. Silence reigned for a painfully long time. There's no one there. Nobody's going to hurt you. You know, my muscles were tightly sprung. My heart was beating somewhere in my throat. Any noise, any little movement, any small whisper from the thicket, and I'd sprint. But nothing of the sort happened. I looked at the mitten once more. Давайте возьмем, по-моему, больше слов может быть. С этим берем то, что больше слов дает нам. I decided to take the lonely mitten from the branch. A shout rumbled across the field and dissolved into the distance. No echo, no hope for reply. I stepped toward the bristly trees and tried to claim my find. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, the branch cracked and the metal tore off, landing in my hand with squish sound. All too heavy. Wet. I squeezed it without thinking, and something dark spilled from it, forming a tiny string between the mitten and the snow. Steam rose from the snow pile. Нет, я пил там таблетку. Поэтому, в принципе, мы можем подозревать, что именно из-за приема таблеток у меня едет крышняк. Я просто думаю, насколько возможна обратная ситуация, что таблетки скрывают что-то такое страшное, что я увидел, из-за этого у меня психологическая травма. Вероятность высока, давайте так. Просто так детям такие таблетки мощные не дают. I froze the place, studying my palms in disgust. Red. The sound of cracking branches invaded the silence. I didn't have to think twice before running away. Hurry! Someone was chasing me from the darkness, breaking pine branches, losing the distance with giant leaps, closing the distance with giant leaps. Snow was slowing me down. Crazy thoughts flew through my mind. I'll get caught, they'll get me, I'll get dropped into the thicket, I'll be gone forever. But there was one more voice, probably one of reason. It gave me strength, spurred me on. You can do it, don't stop. I heard an animal roar behind me. It was so loud my ears went numb. It felt like the sound had come from a pack of hungry beasts rather than a single one. Their nostrils sucked in freezing air. They sensed my fear. Two giant wings flapped above my head. An enormous shadow flew over the clearing. A hoot, a freeze, a wheeze. Roars were coming from all directions now. From the dried up raspberry bush, from twisted pines, from under the windfall. Hurry, run, don't look back! It felt like I was inside a nightmare. A snowy clearing became vicious like quicksand. I was stuck in place. I pulled my leg from the mushy trap just to be caught in a new one, even deeper than before. I continued to drown, thinking deeper and deeper with every desperate push. Was snow ever this sticky? I screamed in horror after realizing it wasn't snow. This wasn't snow. Someone or something in the snow pile was clutching my pants. I gathered all my strength and rushed forward. The pressure on my leg was gone. My boots slipped out of the hole and my soles were on the hand of service again. I reached a clear path with one jump and from there ran to my house. Наконец-то! Its gloomy facade didn't look threatening now. That house was my line of defense from the shadows that flapped their wings and the creatures that were hidden under the snow. I tripped over the doorsteps and smashed into the door. In all my hurry, I still managed to notice the claw marks, as if the dog was striking the wood with its paws, demanding to be let in so it could escape the cold. I hadn't noticed these marks when I was leaving. The heartbeat in my ears was much louder than my surroundings. I couldn't hear whether someone was following me or not. What if they were already in our front yard and Mom had locked the door? Drowning in fear, I pulled the doorknob and it obediently gave way. I rolled into the hallway and shut the door behind me. The porch planks creaked as my pursuers ascended the stairs. Преследователи. Pursuers. As my pursuers ascended the stairs, my fingers slipped off the lock, and I couldn't click it into place. I gritted my teeth and pulled hard on the iron knob, wiping it between the boards. I stared blankly at the door. Someone was standing on the other side of pitiful, flimsy barrier that was probably less useful than blankets. Whizzing breath reached into the house and crashed at me in waves. It smelled of wine and sweat. Mom peeked out of the kitchen and chastised me with the same frigid voice she always used when talking to Dad. What exactly didn't you understand when I told you to never slam the door? I didn't mean to. I snuck a glance at the door. The smell was gone, and the breath was too. If there was someone in the first place, of course. Here, mere 5 meters away from Mom, my fears were slowly weakening, melting like snow in spring, and with it, the last bit of strength I had left my body too. My legs gave way. I propped myself up against the wall so I wouldn't fall over. Mom's expression had changed immediately. The cold mask of strictness and detachment was gone. Mom looked the same as before all those quarrels. All those quarrels. Before all those quarrels. Mom looked the same as before all those quarrels. She finally saw my condition. My wet pants, plastered with snow. Where have you been? What did I tell you, huh? I told you to stay home. Am I nothing to you too? I got afraid she would cry. I reached out to her, like when I was very little, and wanted her to cuddle me. But Mom regained her composure fast and put on her usual face. Her eyes shined like steel. Her voice rang out. Your dad can find his cigarettes. Be honest. Did you snatch them? Were you smoking in secret? Was someone chasing me? I slurred as soon as I started explaining myself. Tears welled up in my eyes. Mom leaned it toward me and sniffed my clothes like a beast, searching for a smell of tobacco. Then she squinted her eyes in suspicion and looked into the front yard. Her expression changed in an instant, and she covered her mouth with her hand. Look over there, at the fence! My heart started thumping as if I became prey once again and my pursuers were following me in the field. I could swear that I heard something scratched at the door, just like in my nightmare. Mom beckoned me with her finger, and I gathered all my remaining bravery to look into the kitchen window facing my fear. And I could barely discern some heavy silhouettes swimming in snow through the icy winter patterns on the glass. Dogs! Just a small box of strays with no name and owner, barely reminding of the hungry monsters that live on the edge of the forest. Oh boy, were you scared of them? I think they'd rather be scared of you, Anton. They were chasing me like a bunny. What if they're a rabbit? The smile had slowly disappeared from Mom's face. Now she looked at the dogs as if it was her first time seeing them. What if they attack Oля? Mom? I wish your dad could just shoot them all. Mom, look, they're alive. Huh? What? Are they your friend or foe after all? Make up your mind. You're not a little kid anymore. I'm 12, Mom. Mom, hello. I'm still a child. Mom, I need your love and help in this life. Mom sighed in annoyance, and I felt so bitter that I bit my lower lip and fixed my gaze on the cobweb-ridden corner, just to keep myself from crying. Well, some detective I am. In reality, I wasn't risking my life among monsters, but rather my pants among a pack of stupid strays. And what for? What use do I have for this mitten? Of course, a dark and sticky mitten that belonged to the lost boy made a squishy sound in my hand. Seemed like I was clutching it the whole time. That's my trump card as a detective. I hurried to present this clue to my mom. Mom, look, it's Vova's mitten! That boy police was asking about in the morning. It drenched in blood. I found it hanging on a tree. I can show where. Let's call the police right away, like the officer had told us to. Mom, look! Ugh. A shadow of doubt slowly crept onto Mom's controlled face, as if she was trying to remember something distant. Like someone tries to remember their dream, but the images slip away. Stop at this moment! Ola will go insane if she hears you. She already has trouble sleeping and whines all the time. And you joke around like this? At that moment I realized the mitten was actually wet from snow. There was no blood whatsoever. I wanted to sink through the floor from embarrassment. Come here, my boy who cries... Come here, my boy who cried wolf. Мальчик, который кричал волки. Don't just stand there, come take your pills. A golden-colored pill, reminiscent of dead wasp, fell onto my palm. I already took one during your breakfast. Don't talk over me. I told you to stay home and you... Dad would have given you a good wiping for that. Come on, take it. You won't be able to sleep at night. And you have school tomorrow. So I had to swallow the bitter medication, drinking it down with similarly awful water that gave off a taste of chlorine. Chlorine? Как-то так должно быть. Maybe it wasn't Mova's mitten. Maybe it wasn't a mitten at all. Just like the forest monsters and Ole's owl. Am I going mad? What's happening to me? Either the pill had immediate effect or my overexerted brain didn't let fear inside anymore. Serenity washed over me, bringing yawny indifference along with it. Yawny. See, you can do it when you try. Take off your coat. Are you asleep?
No, Mom, I was just thinking.
What about, I wonder?
It's just something silly.
Ой, господи, мам, что ты делаешь? Suspicious, ладно. Scrutinized, это что такое? Scrutinized, я правильно прочитала, похлопайте мне. Тщательно выдает тебе переводчик, хотя при этом scrutinized me with suspicious eyes. Считай, просканировала, да? Что-то такое, синоним какой-то должен быть, мне кажется, здесь в переводе правильно. Ну ладно. As if she wasn't sure she was looking at her own son and not some doppelganger that came from the forest. Is everything alright? You had the exact same expression when the policeman asked you about the window. I'm alright, Mom. She heaved a deep sigh. Fine. It seemed like the house had changed. The sofa's fabric had become discolored. Fingerprints appeared on the bathroom tiles. Light bulbs also felt different, dimmer and yellower. Even the salvo inside my mouth had a different taste. A melody from Aladdin could be heard from an upper floor. Ola was done rewatching her favorite Little Mermaid episodes and switched to other tapes. I slowly changed into my home clothes, stopped before the sink, studied my reflection in a mirror, like I was trying to solve one of those spot the difference puzzles. Then I went upstairs. Jafar's and Yaga's voices died down. I walked past Tara's bedroom and slipped into my own. One of the doors was empty. I hid the mitten there. The simple action drained the last bit of strength from me. I sat on the bed. And only then I noticed there was someone behind the curtains. My tired hand dropped to the sheets. Whether it was due to medication I took or the stress I underwent, the room began to contort as if the wind was blowing the walls out like a pair of sails. The corners of the room bent and undulated? Undulated это что, извините? Я не помню. Undulated. Как волнистые. Исходили волнами. The only stable thing in the whole room was the figure between the windowsill and the curtains. A flimsy piece of cloth was stuck to my hidden visitor. It reminded me of burial sheets. Ola? Who else would be standing there? I stood up and licked my dried up lips. Yeah, Ola, so funny. The silhouette was unmoving. It was enveloped softly by the curtains, as if there was a thick layer of darkness there, not a human being. I reached toward the curtains. Badoom. Badoom, beat my heart, controlled by medication. The wind sang in the field with a chorus of voices. For a second, I wanted to return to the bed, just to lie down and watch the person behind the curtain, knowing full well they were looking back at me. They're looking without blinking. They are looking without blinking, waiting for me to fall asleep. Plastic rings rustled against the holder when I pulled open the curtains. Мне нравится, как некоторые предложения вообще изичные. В некоторых предложениях я просто каждое слово пытаюсь выговаривать с трудом. Boo! Gotcha! I knew it was you from the beginning. Blindingly bright halo lit up above Ole's head with the setting sun at the background. My sister was shining. When she was just a baby, Dad always used to say she was shining with happiness. I always retorted, "But Dad, she's not some flashlight." But I brought her to the window one day, and sunlight poured on her smiling face. I felt like I was holding a light woven child. I saw everything! Oh, really? What did you hide? She was just like my mom when she was little, before she put on her sad mask of tiredness and switched to her commanding tone of voice. It's nothing, just Ollie ran up to the table, her eyes rounded, and asked, "You stole something and hid it there? Are you a thief?" What? Oh, don't be stupid! I didn't steal anything. A clear image came to mind. That mitten hanging from a tree branch. What if I did steal it after all? From the forest, from the tilted figure standing behind black trees. Or I could be selfish and stubborn when she wanted. Then show me! Swear that you won't tell anyone. Then I'll show you. Oля wore a plotting smile. I swear on Mom's heart! An oath she heard in one of the movies about pioneers we watched. Don't say things like that. Ola nodded and made a gesture with her hand locking her mouth with the imaginary key. She was filled with curiosity that was splashing in her giant eyes. I opened the drawer and Ola leaned in, holding her breath. It looked like there was not just a simple mitten, but some sort of exotic creature. Is this someone's mitten? She said it as if she couldn't understand what she saw. The certain boy lost it and got lost himself. Now, do you understand how dangerous it's for kids to wander in the forest, right? He must be really cold out there. Will they find him? They will. The police are going house to house, showing his photo to everybody. Ola traversed? На мой вечный враг по жизни. Ударение, дай сюда. Traversed. Ola traversed the room with care and pressed her tiny palms against the window. And why are they going to the houses and not the forest? Are they scared? The question caught me off guard. The police aren't scared of anything. They already scouted the forest. Yeah, right, flashed in my clouded mind. Did they really check every nook and cranny where darkness, cold, and whispers of icy branches dwell? If that's the case, how did they miss the mitten? Or did it appear later? For me. I changed the topic, as if trying to get Ola as far away as possible from the forest thicket. We may get a reward if I go and find this boy by myself. A lot of stuff, like in the Wheel of Fortune. Sounds cool, right? Ola wasn't listening to me. She was piercing the forest with incredibly adult eyes, uncharacteristic for her. Uncharacteristic for her. Oh. Куда? Ударение! Ударение! Да, uncharacteristic. Uncharacteristic for her. What if the owl got him? Nonsense. The owl won't be able to lift a human. But, you know what? I was speaking my words with utmost care. I forced them out of my overexerted brain. Stay away from the forest. I think it's... How should I put it? It's cursed or something. Just like in fairy tale. No, more like in that spooky tape our parents hide from us. Ola shivered and stole a glance at the window. I saw you running away. Someone was chasing you. No, it's just I was hurrying back home so Mom wouldn't be worried. As I looked at my sister, my heart was tearing apart. She was so fragile. It was so easy to stifle her light. Stifle. Все-таки stifle. Погасить, задушить, да? It was so easy to stifle her light. Gust of wind, and her small fire would be gone. You're lucky. Mom won't even let me go outside. I'm like a princess in a tower. Can't go anywhere. I'll die from boredom here. You're wrong. No one has ever died from boredom. And you have me and your cartoons, and Mom and Dad will be good to each other soon. You know what I would wish for my next birthday? I'd wish for Mom and Dad to turn into children, so we could go and play together like we used to. Yeah, and if you'd make them as small as bugs, we could place them into a little box. Ola giggled and tugged at my sleeve. Tasha, let's go watch Aladdin. Что за фатиг? Объясните мне, что такое фатиг? С фатигами мы раньше не имели никаких дел. Утомление, усталость, вот это вот. Фатиг. Все правильно. Фатиг. Fatigue won over my desire to be with my little sister. Fatigue won over my desire to be with my little sister. I was washed over by some sort of heinous apathy. А апатия у вас куда ударение? Apathy. Угу. Вот это как-то сложно, конечно, когда похожие слова, типа по-русски апатия, но у них apathy. Apathy. I'm too tired, I don't want to. Come on! It's so boring alone, and Mom always busy. We can pick a cartoon you haven't seen before. I know all of our tapes by heart at this point. Not all of them. You haven't watched Peter Pan. Remember how you fell asleep in the middle of it? And so much happened after that. Let's go. Maybe a bit later. Should I tell you how it ends? Let's save that for tomorrow. I won't tell you tomorrow. I know. Let's play hide and seek. No, Ola. Then draw me a dino. Ola, please. Draw it. Leave me alone already. I blurted out without thinking, and then was just immediately taken aback. I'd never screamed at my little sister like that. Ola stared at me in shock. Her lips started trembling, precursor to tears. My chest was seething with disgust and embarrassment. What's happening to me? I hurried to prevent Ola from crying. All right, you won. Let's go watch cartoons for a bit. I don't wanna. I came up to her, put my hand on her soft head. Let's go. Let's go watch Peter Pan. No, you'll fall asleep again. Так, подожди, это какая-то маленькая неудача тут стала проскальзывать. Oh, you'll fall asleep again. Boo, you fall asleep again. I smiled and lifted her chin. Her eyes were wet and felt bottomless. I promise I won't. And I'll draw you full Triceratops. Трицераптоса нарисую, короче, тебе. Hooray! Cyber Pops! Well, close enough. Ola rubbed her eyes with the sleeve of her pajamas, and shining smile returned to her face. I'll go as Mom for condensed milk and bread, and you remind the tape the bread is fresh just how you like it. Alright, just be careful not to spill the milk, or you'll be yelled at again. I wanna bet I won't spill it. Ola disappeared into the doorway, and I dragged my feet into the neighboring room. Так, что у нас тут было? A scary window where Ola sees that a cursed owl every night lurking in the dark. Ola keeps curtains open during the day, but as soon as the twilight comes, she shut them tight so she wouldn't see the pair of hungry eyes outside. Ola countless toys. An old Freddy bear is the main attraction here. Ola doesn't sleep without it. Тоже, кстати, я думаю, это может играть большую роль в восприятии наших бедных детей. То есть, получается, я так понимаю, все-таки они раньше жили хорошо, зарабатывали хорошо, им постоянно дарили сладости, игрушки. То есть они привыкли, как бы, в общем и целом, к вниманию, любви, большому количеству развлекаловки. Их даже в Диснейленд обещали сводить. Извините меня, вас когда-нибудь возили в Диснейленд? Меня нет. И получается, что для них эта ситуация еще и тяжелее, как раз потому, что у них действительно финансовое состояние сильно очень изменилось. Помимо внимания родителей, они потеряли еще и какие-то новые сладости, игрушки, как бы фактически всего сразу решили. То есть, если бы у них изначально с детства они не привыкли к тому, чтобы там кушать сладости, или чтобы у них было много игрушек, они бы, может, особо об этом... Они просто как бы об этом бы мечтали, но это было бы не тем, чего они лишились вместе с родительским вниманием и вот этим вот всем ихними ссорами там. And she digs her nose into its fur when she sleeps. Вот какие-то бывают такие обороты, слова вроде простые, а потом язык не поворачивается просто. A piggy bank, always saving money for a little puppy, because dad said that taking care of him will take a lot of money. Так, пошли, включим телек, послушаем веселые сказочки местного фольклора. The old photon TV was gathering dust in the corner. All that was left was clicking the button on the front panel. The tube warmed up, and familiar white noise started dancing on the black screen. I almost reached out to turn on the VCR when the noise calmed down. A blurry image appeared for a moment. It was dark taiga forest, just like the one outside my window. The picture split the screen in half. Something creepy, resembling human speech, was coming out of the speaker. Just a few moments later, the scenery was again overshadowed by noise. Did it catch some rogue signal? Local TV station only really showed Soviet cartoons, and even that was pretty rare. Господи, разобрались в словах. And only just recently I used to always watch Robotech before school. It was so awesome. Maybe I should tinker with the antenna. What if I catch this channel again? On the other hand, Ola had asked me to find tape. It wouldn't be nice to disappoint her. But in my sleepy state, I didn't have strength to do all of it. Кстати, получается интересно, что реальность меняется. Потому что, когда я ищу, не настраивая сигнал, кассета лежит внутри. А если я настраиваю сигнал, кассета лежит под моей рукой буквально, и я могу на нее записать. Set. Go! Спасибо. The picture finally cleared up. But the moment I rejoiced at finding that weird signal again, the TV started coughing. Coughing was barely coming through the cacophony. Вот это, кстати, получается маленький косячок, что ли? Если он тут слово какофония использует, а потом какофония ему Полина объясняет. Это, мне кажется, можем считать за ляп? Нет, просто в голову пришло. He was often seen at the moment when small snowy hills were lined up on the screen, pierced by rickety crosses, and the male voice was narrating with a slow, mournful voice. Ну, я, конечно, тот шикарный голос не повторю, но мне надо это все прочитать. It was a pitch black night at the cemetery. In that fateful dark time, little Xenia met her fate at the base of the monstrous thicket Dweller? Dweller? Я точно это слово раньше слышала, но я не помню. Обитатель? Обитатель. Житель-обитатель. Dweller. Okay. The locals call him none other than the forest master. I froze and did my best not to move, as if by doing that I could scare away the narrator. I listened closely to his every word. The beast dealt with the helpless girl in a masterful manner. The camera planned across the snow with something black spilled over it, looking for ragged pieces of cloth that were thrown around all over the place. I didn't want to think whether Xenia's remains were wrapped in there, so I shut my eyes without thinking. The voice continued. Wolves are rare guests to these parts. here's what Tamara, the old woman that lives in a nearby crypt, had to say. The close-up shot of the face of an old homeless woman, weary from life and alcohol abuse, rattled on the screen.
Yes, yes, such fearsome beastie it is, worse than a rising dead.
Old woman splattered salva all over the rectangular mic.
And the stink, it is like...
The rest of her comparison was swallowed up by the sound of horn.
I've never felt anything like this. It was just standing there. Yes, right where you stand, boy, and pierced me with his eyes, right in the middle of the day. It was so huge, that one, with the glassy eyes.
Нет, переводчик, спаси. Obscenities were covered by another beep. Нецензурная лексика. Непристойности.
You know, they said if this demon lays its eyes on you, it'll snatch you, put you into his back, and you're done. But he won't touch me. It likes me, it seems. So they even call me a devil's wench.
And it's definitely true. A carnivorous monster will not touch those who fell to the level of forest beasts, going for the innocent child's blood instead. The forest master's presence is felt more and more on the outskirts of our country. Torn between believing in what was said and shrugging it away, I decided to record the remaining part of the documentary for some reason. I quickly grabbed the tape and was on top of the TV and put it into the VCR without even looking at the cover. I pressed rec, turned the sound up, and paid attention to the slapping signal. It's not called the Forest Master for nothing. All of the animals obey it, be they hairy or feathery. They all precursors for its appearance. If you hear howls in a distance, then it most likely already knows where you live. If you find animal prints all over your doorstep and birds watching you from the trees, you'd better hide. It's already coming for you. And if you wake up at night and see a pair of eyes in your window, then soon будет скример. Подождем еще немножечко, полюбуемся на Рашбеллу. Я не знаю, как этот звук назвать. TV suddenly went mad and looped that last word over and over, piercing my ears. I got goosebumps all over my spine. The tape ended and was rewinding to the beginning. A sound of rustling tape reminded me of leaves in the wind and the slow howl of the beast. I woke up from my stupor and pressed the button. The VCR ejected the tape. For a moment I thought it was stained with salva, but that was just the light from the chandelier making the black plastic glossy. And then I saw the cover. Oops, I recorded it over Peter Pan. That's what I get for hurrying. It was bad enough that I ruined Ola's cartoon, but I also put this creepy stuff over. Oh, так, стоп, подожди, почему мы застыли на этом? Over it. Stuff over it. Creepy stuff over it. But I also put this creepy stuff over it. I can't let her see this. We'll drown in tears. I snuck glance at the door. I could hear the clatter of glass and squeaky floorboards. Ola appeared in the doorway. You haven't started without me, have you? My sister brought the tray with unevenly. Господи, Алена, что ты сидишь тупишь? Unevenly, неровно нарезанный хлеб. Unevenly cut bread and a whole can of condensed milk. No. I was looking for a tape. Do you really want to watch Peter Pan? I do. Turn it on already. Mom will come watch her Brazilian drama soon. Come on, think, fake detective. You know, I didn't like Peter Pan. Maybe we should watch Little Mermaid instead? I've already seen it so many times. And you promised me. She's so stubborn. I know, let's watch a couple of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episodes first. Deal? Какое прикольное название у них на английском. Ola frowned it, but ultimately gave up. She put down the tray and crossed her hands on her chest. If you want it so much, can you open the milk can? I'm afraid I'll cut myself with the sharp edges. As soon as I stood up, colorful dots popped up before my eyes and my sore legs were pierced by soundless of needles. Only when I reached the sofa I realized that the can was already open. Ola had tricked me, played me for a fool. My stomach became heavy. I wanted to rush toward the TV, but my little sister was faster. She picked up the remote and proclaimed in a victorious tone, "Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha! As the remote's master, I command you to watch Peter Pan!" I couldn't even open my mouth, and the VCR had already eaten a cursed tape. She'll play it, and then black crosses on unnamed graves, empty crypts, bloody scraps on the snow, and an insane devil's wench. I'd better tell the truth. Ola, stop. I erased the end of your tape by accident. I'll trade it with you for 2 of mine. What do you mean? You couldn't erase it. Me and Dad had broken all those plastic pins with a screwdriver. You can't record anything over my cartoons now. My little sister pressed the triangular play button on the remote. I squeezed on inside, awaiting the out-of-this-world voice of the narrator. But I saw a duel between Peter Pan and Captain Hook instead. I sighed in relief. My head, heavy as a leaden ball, now rested in my hands. Ola smiled in joy. She put the tape on rewind and started squeaking milk over her bread. And when the cartoon started, she forgot about everything in the world. As if she really got transported to the Neverland like she always wished. To be honest, I also imagined myself there, in a land where one never ages, where no one argues over little things, where no one listens to fight and the sound of broken plates at night. But now, Peter Pan's land was especially far away from me. My thoughts dragged on, stumbled upon the horned beast that awaited me among the trees, and the narrator's mournful voice haunted me, sliding over bushes and ravines. А может быть, ravines? Ravines! Даже так. Like winged carnivore would track its prey. It felt like I was dreaming with my eyes still open. Then my sister's scream pulled me back to reality. Tosha, shut the curtains, fast! Why? No one is watching you. It's dark, and when it's dark, the owl comes. I'm scared. I got out of bed, fighting my drowsiness, and closed the curtains. I did my best not to look outside, toward the treetops, toward the taiga forest, which seemingly drew closer and closer. Of course, it was just a visual effect from shadows of branches scraping the snow. Tosha, Mom thinks I made the owl up, and Dad too thinks that I'm a liar since I'm small. But the owl exists. Honestly, it does. You do believe me, right? That it comes every night, and I swiftly grabbed Ola's hand and looked her in the eyes. I was trying to transfer at least some of my courage and determination. But did I really have those qualities? Yes, I believe you, alright? Just don't nag our parents about it anymore. They're already dealing with a lot, so they'll just get mad at you. Come and tell me if anything happens. And don't look out of the window. But it wants me to look. Doesn't matter. Act like it doesn't exist and never existed. Like it's made up. Just like Mom and Dad say. It'll get tired of waiting and fly away. We followed Peter Pan's adventures as if nothing had happened, as if the forest didn't kidnap kids, as if our parents weren't tearing each other apart bit by bit. Captain Hook was running away from Crocodile, and Captain Pan was headed to London on a glided sailboat. By some miracle, I lasted longer than my little sister. Ola's eyelids had dropped. She started snoring lightly, resting her chin on the side of the bed. The chorus was singing the ending song. The world of Disney was lit up by a silvery moon. And then another moon peeked from under the first one, scary and warm, hanging over the tiger forest. Что-то вот я не уверена. Бледная, болезненная, тусклая. Вот, наверное, тусклая, что-то в этом роде. The horrific report got recorded right over the credits. My throat went dry. My pulse became faster. I looked over to Ola. She smacked her lips in her sleep. I squeezed the remote with all my might, ready to press stop any moment. I rewound the recording, checked if it was intact, and then carefully took out the tape. The protective pin was still in place. I stood up and left Ola's room. Whether it was by providence or by curse, I hid the tape alongside the mitten at the exact moment Mom peeked into my room. Enough playing around. It's your first day at school tomorrow. Go to bed. You should sleep properly. You don't want to be teased by being sleepy, right? Мама, ты вообще в курсе о том, что я переживаю, что меня будут дразнить за то, что я там очкарик, за то, что я тут вообще как бы впервые на деревне и все такое? Давай не будем о больном, ага? Спокойной ночи! Ну ладно. Adults think everything is so simple, as if sound sleep would ensure my classmates would like me. Это, кстати, интересно, Антон, я с тобой согласна. Получается, взрослые иногда почему-то относятся к детям, как будто их проблемы это ничто. Фигня всякая, которую легко решить. Но при этом у них самих 100-500 тысяч проблем, которые хрен ли решишь. Но в том-то и дело, что для детей эти проблемы еще совсем в новинку, и для них такие проблемы, ну хрен решишь. Ну блин, страшно в новую школу идти, ё-моё, серьезно. Я тоже в новую школу переходила, страшно было, между прочим. I covered myself with a blanket up to my neck and listened to the house humming, to something invisible rustling in corners. My inner voice had a question for me. Do I want to hear that mysterious flute again? Yes or no? Maybe it's just a part of growing up, and I can't fully understand my own desires. The forest wailed behind the barrier that was my walls. Some eternal entity wandered the fields. Branches shook as if calling for me. The wind howled on and on in the night. My thoughts were like annoying flies that entered my head before becoming weak and tangled. I didn't notice how I fell into slumber. It has come after all, the day I feared the most, the first day of a new school term. Episode 2. Time to play with you. Раз, два, прилети сова. 1, 2. The owl will arrive. 3, 4, 5. Время поиграть. 3, 4, 5. Time to play with you. Что-то не рифмуется пока что, не знаю, как тут они будут изменять считалочку или как-то. Фух, мы преодолели большой кусок текста. Пока что на этом приостановимся. Надеюсь, что вам было интересно. Не забудьте написать в комментариях, продолжать ли мне читать Зайчика на английском, потому что мне, в принципе, нравится. Практика, как мне кажется, хорошая, хотя все еще окончание у меня страдает, что капец. Но всем спасибо за просмотр. До новых видео!